Welcome everyone to In the Flow with Jessica K and Robin Wilt. And today we are super excited to talk to you about eclipse season and how this is a perfect opportunity for forgiveness. So Robin, go ahead. Take it away.
Ooh, forgiveness is just, it's become one of my favorite topics, which is ironic because I used to not be a very forgiving person. I used to hold a lot of grudges. So forgiveness has come up for me many times over the past probably decade. And it has been coming up for the collective and for clients and myself as well. And as Jessica and I were chatting, kind of all of the pieces were clicking into place. So we are getting ready to finalize um, our nodal time that we've had in Aries and Libra, which is a lot about self and the other. So a lot about relationships, how we relate in relationships, how we interact with people in relationships. And it's all kinds of relationships, right? It's loved ones, it's not so loved ones, it's work, coworkers, bosses. So when we look at the nodes, they kind of indicate where the eclipses are going to be. So we're ending we're just ending that time period. We actually changed signs for the nodes in January of 2025. So we have a few months left. So it's almost like the universe is asking us to kind of just clean up these dynamics, these energies. And a super simple, easy way to do that is through forgiveness. So we're going to chat a little bit about that, like how forgiveness has kind of benefited both of us, and then how you can use that energy. So do you just want me to keep chatting for a few minutes about it, or
Go ahead.
do you have any? Okay. So forgiveness, let me think about how I started forgiveness. So I actually had a girl that I knew. She did radical forgiveness, like worksheets from, what is his name? What is that? The Radical Forgiveness book. I'm so bad at remembering authors. John,
Talking about. I don't remember
yeah.
his name though.
So you actually go through and you do this worksheet and you're just really petty about like the situation that you're annoyed with. This is kind of funny actually. So I had a twin flame situation after my divorce 8 years ago, and this person triggered so much for me. And it was just really annoying. It was really annoying. So as I'm doing this worksheet with her, she's asking me these questions. And by the end of it, what you realize is that, right, these people at a soul level who come in and who annoy the shit out of us, they trigger the shit out of us, they are just like the thorn in our sides. At a soul level, they actually really love us. Like when my soul wanted to come to earth and say, okay, I want to work on self-love or I want to work on self-worth, their soul came forward and said, okay, I'm going to come in and trigger the crap out of you so you can have these things come up and then you can be forced to work on them. So forgiveness at this really radical level is saying, nobody did anything wrong to me. I chose this on some level. I'm the one who's carrying around all this anger, all of this, hatred, all of this bitterness, all of this, whatever you want to call it, towards this person, towards this situation, when I can just kind of choose to drop that and to look at it from that lens of love. And y'all, it has changed my life in so many ways. So I like to share this brief story with you just to show you the power of forgiveness. So about 10 years ago when this started for me, there was a lady that I worked with, and I could not stand this lady. Like, y'all know those people that you just see them and you're like, like every part of you is like, ugh. I could not stand her. Like I would probably almost use the word hate. Like I was just that at that place in my life, I was a very different person, and she just annoyed the crap out of me. So shortly thereafter, like being in this person's energy, I found forgiveness. And I just started like every night for 5 minutes a night where I would just send her love. I would do Ho'oponopono. I would just say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And initially in my mind, as I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't beep and forgive this lady. Like, I can't stand her. The whole time, like my mind is like, this is bullshit. I don't really mean this, blah, 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 blah. So I did it consistently for, I don't even know how long, like, maybe a month. So then a few months later, I see her out and about, like I had left that job. I was able to actually genuinely, like from my heart, see her and give her a hug and like have a nice conversation with her and like have nothing in my heart but like gratitude and desiring the best for her. It was like such a huge shift for me, like personally and also with this person, that it just made me see like the power of forgiveness and how much it can shift our energy. And also, like, if we have that much angst towards somebody, they're going to be feeling it on some level. Like, we can't be sending out that kind of energy into the universe and not have the other person be picking up on it, even if they're not aware, even if they're not spiritual, even if they're not woke, like they're still going to be feeling that energy. So, think about like how beautiful that was for her to like have this person who she probably knew that I didn't like her, for me to like genuinely have that place in my heart for her. Who knows what karma we had to work through, but just having that willingness to consistently do it, to kind of ignore the mind chatter, or to just, allow it to be there. Anything you want to share on that, Jessica? Because I feel like when you and I don't want to share your information, but I think when forgiveness initially comes up, we're like, I don't want to
Yeah.
forgive that person.
Well, and I'll go around the corner to get to there. So yeah, for
Yeah.
me, forgiveness has always been kind of an interesting thing. I was raised in the Christian church, so there was a lot of talk about it, but I didn't really understand how to do it. And then I heard about the Hoponopono, and I also thought that was wonderful, but it also just felt like surface level. So for many years, I ran a mental health program for people that had serious mental illness. And I was able, one of the beautiful things about it, it was reintegrating them into the world, into the community. So I did lots of groups and we could pick whatever we wanted. So I encouraged my employees, find whatever you want to do. And they all did. And for me, I was like, let's do forgiveness. And I had a nurse practitioner friend of mine who was like, I'd love to do it with you. So we really dove into what does forgiveness mean for us? What are our experiences? And we found this great curriculum by the Fetzer Institute called Conversations on Forgiveness. And you can still Google it now. It was really coming, it was a big thing back then. They actually had a documentary that I think you can find on YouTube called The Power of Forgiveness. And it was just beautiful. It was a multicultural, multi-religious view at what forgiveness means to different people. So for me, I'm very much like experiential, but I also want to understand other people's experiences so I can see what works for me. And that really helped me more than anything. Every time I started a group, I had a specific thing in mind that I wanted to work on and heal. And I also listened to everybody else's process of how they were healing and where they were stuck. And honestly, it comes down to self-forgiveness. Like that's always the thing is like, for me, it's always like, how did I put myself in this situation to allow this to happen? Or put myself in this situation, allow this person to treat me this way or do this to me. And that's been a lot of the work I've been doing recently. Now, what I have been finding is that this forgiveness stuff has come up. So this was 10 years ago. And I've been doing it off and on. So not, I did a lot of work. I healed relationships with my family and those things. It was really, really important. And it really helped me move and be a lot cleaner in my relationships to attract better partners, to just attract better in general. So recently, over the last year, it's been a lot of self-forgiveness because, I view myself as a very powerful, intelligent, wise person. And I've always been pretty precocious, even as a child. Like, even as a kid, I was like very smart. So it's like, why did you put yourself in those situations? Well, I was like 5 or I was 10. Like, come on. And, we have to give ourselves grace. Just like we give grace to other people, we have to give ourselves grace for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or like you said, with that radical forgiveness, the right place at the right time to have these experiences. So what I've been finding now is I'm doing the self-forgiveness stuff, moving out of that, and then I'm finding people, so new people the last 5 years or so, that really like trigger me like extreme, like nobody's ever treated me like this in my entire life. I can't believe it. Like, and just like the rage, like, how dare they? It's unprovoked. Ah! And I talked a little bit to Robin before this, and she's like, oh, blah, 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 and just says something, like, oh, well, what about this? And I was like, ah, like, you would have thought that you like picked me up and threw me against the wall. I was so like by it. But what I have realized is that for me now, when new people, so like people that are newer in my life, come around and I'm having these really like interactions with them, they're really reminding me of stuff in the past where I did a lot of healing because I wanted to have good relationships. So it's like, oh, I got all the gangrene out of this wound. It's just a little pussy. Let's put a band-aid on it. And I did all the healing I could, but there's still more healing. But to go back into that wound, to go back into that wound would be too painful and would impact these relationships that I've forgiven and I've cultivated over the last decade. And now I got to go in there and dig it out again because it wasn't completely clean. And I'm in a new place where I can go back and forgive that again. It just doesn't feel good. Again, that's that, interesting enough, that's that spiritual bypassing, right? I want to feel good, love and light all the time. I don't want to feel icky. It's like, no, if you're actually doing the work, you've got to go into the shadow. And it's like, people are so afraid of going into that low vibration because, oh, then everything, whatever. No, you got to go in and clean out the closet or clean out the dirty drain in order to maintain health and well being. So that's where it's like, okay, Jessica, I've been doing stuff and I've been learning a lot about myself. Pretty much, I've renovated my whole house, my whole life in this moment does not look anything like it did even 2 months ago. So I've had a huge amount of physical change, environmental change, life change, even having pups pass. But when you do all of that, then it's like, okay, we've gotten maybe through all that. Now it's back to go to the spiritual work, to that relationship work, and really look at where there's unforgiven wounds that are actually preventing me from going to the next level. I constantly desire having a deeper connection, having, just spirit guide me day in and day out. And I've been struggling with that a little bit recently. And it's interesting because I kind of got the message today. It was like, we are always connected with you. You just don't feel it. So this is more about you feeling it than you actually being connected. And I was like, oh, I get that. It's like we are connected. And I want to be able to be more in that space. So in order to have more of that high vibration, I've got to go in and find those places of wounding, clean them out and allow them to heal to another level. And, that's the work of this lifetime. Like I'm still alive. So there is still things to work on. And it's not the new person. It's not the person I've known for 5 years. It's the stuff from childhood. That's like, okay, time to like the way this person is acting. What is that reminding me of that I need to go back and look at something else, forgive on another level, see it. For me, it's interesting you mentioned three. For me, things are reflected 3 times. Usually 3 different people that are not in any way connected. Somebody at work, something at home, something random, like a stranger. And then it's that way I can't pin it. I can't just say, oh, it's my job or oh, it's home or oh, it's people outside of me. Like it's like, nope, this is you. It's reflected enough. This is you. Work on that, find peace with it. And the Ho'oponopono is a good place for me to start with that because that's actually the other conversation that Robin had. It's like, I am so averse to this situation. I don't understand. There's like, because I usually try to cultivate understanding. Like, help me understand, help me see this person in a way that I can forgive them. None of that exists right now. I'm just like, the devil is walking around near me. You know what I mean? And it's just not true. It's just not true. So I've got to sit down with it, do some Ho'oponopono, and get to a place where I can understand it better and forgive it. And that's even, the mental piece because my heart aches around it. Like I hate it, but I haven't, and I'm getting tired of carrying that
Mm.
animosity, but I don't know where to move. I feel almost immobilized by these strong feelings. So just that softening up and allowing the emotion to come forth, which is going to be anger and it's going to be tears. Like the whole thing is very sad. And just allowing myself to feel all of that, to feel all the hurt, to maybe go back to where did this come from? Like, how is this person reminding me of something that already happened that I need to forgive? And I will say, like, remembering those things are at this point very shocking because it's not stuff that's in my conscious memory. So it's not like, oh, I've known all this, but it's like, oh, shoot, that did happen. And I'm not okay with it. And now it's coming out. So and I'll one more piece before I hand it back to you, Robin. That's the other thing is I've been wanting to remember who I am, to remember who am I? Who am I in the greater, meaning of everything. And in order to get to who I am at a higher level, I've got to remember this life and what I've experienced. And we all know number one coping mechanisms: to forget, to put it behind a wall, to break it apart so that we don't remember. So as I desire, and my desire to know who I am and remember who I am is so strong. Like it's this deep yearning. And so with that yearning, as I follow that, it's like, okay, now we have to find everything that you haven't healed, become aware of, that you don't remember from this life, so that you can remember that and then remember more. All of this to say, great time to do this with the eclipse, to remember who we are in an interdimensional scale. Who are we interdimensionally? Who are we in the broader scheme of things? And we can only understand that when we understand who we are and what we're doing in this body, in this life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So much, like so many good points that you made there. So I want to just share briefly, like about the eclipses, right? So even if you don't know anything about astrology, just understand that with eclipses, they are like, it's super powerful energy that comes in and activates us in some way. So right, Jessica and I both believe that these energies come along to support us. They kind of bring things to light, maybe things that were hidden, maybe things that we've been holding on to. So it's just energy that is supporting us in doing this healing work and having these realizations. And I want to go back to, because you've said that a few times today, like I think myself included, like we can get so like we want to understand things, right? We're like, well, I need to understand it. I need to,
Yeah.
but sometimes spirit is just saying like, or calling us to just do the shadow work, right? So in this case, it is bringing the forgiveness energy into it, because it's not easy. Like it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy because it brings up so many emotions. So just by being consistent with it, like this is a really good time to start. And actually, I started a September forgiveness challenge on my Instagram page. So I'm just, just very, what's the word? Like casually, I'm just hopping on once a day, as many days as I can in September and just doing like a few minutes of forgiveness because again, it keeps coming up for me and for clients. So join me over there if you want to do some forgiveness with me, just very briefly every day. And then the other thing that, back to what Jessica was saying about those deeper levels and like, the healing work that we do, like what I've noticed for myself, and I was chatting with a friend today about this, like all of the work that I've done over the last decade around relationships, and very heavily 2 years ago when I sat with ayahuasca, it was so much around um, relationships, and masculine and feminine energy for me in my chart are like a very big so my Venus and my Mars, which represent masculine and feminine energy, my Chiron is in the middle of those two energies. So there was almost um, like a divide that I had internally, and then also that showed up externally for me in relationships. So very much like I didn't trust the masculine. I didn't trust any of it really. I didn't trust the feminine. I mean, I very much had like this kind of weird kind of thing going on. So anyway, all of this work that I've done, right? I've been changing my beliefs. I've been changing like this really deep energy, but now I've been given this opportunity, like in the physical, to actually embody it. So we do all of this work, and then the universe very lovingly presents these situations like, okay, you're learning to trust, you're learning to trust other people, you're learning to trust yourself, you're learning to not control. So you've learned all of it on these deep levels. Now you actually have to go out and do it in the physical, which that's hard, right? It's really the embodiment aspect of like all of these things that we heal through that can be the most challenging, because we're like, I did all this work. Why is this shit coming up in my life? And it's an opportunity, instead of looking at it as a test, it's a really beautiful opportunity to cultivate those things that you've learned and to actually embody them in the physical, which is what creates the lasting change, right? So it doesn't need to be perfect. Like, let yourself off the hook. It doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect. You're going to probably make mistakes. It may be a little bit challenging, but just remind yourself like how far you've come. Like I've really been kind of, dropping into that the past couple of weeks. Like, wow, I would have responded so much differently to this same situation 6 months ago or, 6 years ago. So give yourself that, that grace and whatever it is that you need to move through it. Because this shit's not easy, right? It's not like not everybody's doing this crap because it's not the easiest thing in the world. So, anything else you want to share, Jessica, about?
Yeah, no, I love that. It just makes me think of we do all this work. We do all this work. And when we see it in the real world, it's like, oh, it's like when you take the practice exam and you actually go into the exam and you see the question, like, I know the answer to this. So for me, at first I was like, ugh. And then I was like, oh yes, like I have I have done enough work that I have manifested this in the world around me. And now I get to show my skill and I get to work on it. So like you said, it's not like it has to be perfect. We just need to show that we need to implement some of the tools. Like, this life is like an internship. So you go to school and then you put it in some practical application. So that's what it is. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. And then you ask for guidance and you ask for help and you say, okay, next time. And when we do that, when we say, okay, I did it this time and I was like 50%, but next time I'm going to do this. What we are doing is we are continuing to manifest the energy of our awareness and shifting that reality. So it's so good when we learn something and we do it and then we say, oh, and next time I'm going to do this. And we let it play that mind movie out because we're creating it. And then the next time comes up. And that's what I really like. It's not, I definitely have the inner critic. It's not as loud as it used to be. So it used to be like, oh, Jessica, I can't believe, da da da. It's not like that. It's like this play. It's this creative curiosity, like, oh, I had this conversation. And next time I can be more gracious. And next time I can feel more grounded and just playing with it. Is that how it always is? No. There's sometimes I get super hot and but then I think, oh, let me breathe, 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 ground. Because that's what I realize. Like whenever I'm like all amped up, like I'm not grounded. So something happened. Let me go for a walk. Let me go in nature. Let me ground. Help me, like help me. I'm going on a walk. I'm losing my mind right now. Allow the information to come in. And then it's like, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I can do now. This is what I can do next time. And then everything, nervous system, everything just, ah, because we get worry, anxiety, fear when we don't know how to respond. We don't have to have all the answers. We allow that higher wisdom to come in and to just show us, show me, give me a new mind movie because I don't like this one.
Yeah. So let's actually, because we were going to kind of keep today a little bit shorter, like maybe half an hour. So as we kind of get near the end, are you okay with sharing? Like we kind of already, I think you started to segue into it, but like different tools that we use to kind of calm ourselves. So I love that you were talking about the breath. So I was listening to a Matt Kahn talk the other day, and I can't even remember which one it was, but he was talking about how it is really that simple sometimes to just in this moment that I'm getting triggered, like I noticed that I don't breathe, right? I used to have asthma really bad when I was a kid. And it for me, like it really was just I would hold my breath a lot. Like I felt so much. And I think that was like one of my coping mechanisms. There were other things too, but like that was a big one for me. So I notice sometimes like that I'm not breathing in the moment. So like even just tuning in and right, this awareness, it comes over time. So like if you can't catch yourself in the moment, just that's why meditation and like breathing when you're calm, it creates that habit in your body. So when you are being triggered, you can say, okay, let me just come back to my breath. Like I find myself putting my hand on my heart a lot or like touching your physical body. Like, okay, I'm being triggered right now. Let me just like close my eyes and just have a moment. So any of these things that we share with you, I believe that the reason that we do it throughout the day when we're calm is so our body gets used to that energy. And then when we are triggered, it's much easier to fall into that pattern and that habit instead of going back into our old patterns and habits. So, for me, nature is almost or is all also a huge one. What about you, Jessica?
Yes, well, it's exactly like you said with this. We're reprogramming our nervous system. We're making a new habit. So I know in the past, something would trigger me. I would get upset and angry and blah. And now it's like, what am I doing to shift that so that that habit is there? So that the neural pathways always lead me to this. And I find myself now where I'll just go on a walk. Like I will find myself when I'm getting amped up, I will find myself automatically just leave the room and go on a walk. Like I'll be back. We'll continue the conversation, but my body is ready to move. And listening to your body, like being embodied is important, but then listen. So get grounded every day, just as something to do. I read somewhere where it said within the first 30 minutes of the day, go outside and look at the sun. It helps with all the hormones. And so that's what I do. First thing in the morning, go outside, say hi to the sun. I, bring in as much of that light as I can, and I feel good. And that's where so in the morning, I can say I am grounded. And so I listen to my body throughout the day. When I get agitated or whatever, I allow myself to move. And that's the other big thing for me is movement. I'm an Aries. I need movement. And if I start getting agitated, I need to just move. The worst thing I could do is sit down somewhere and fume or ruminate. If I move, then I can move that energy out of my person and I can really start bringing in clarity. So that's where, yes, I love walking. Yes, I love nature. Yes, I love being outside, but consistently for me, it's a mental thing. So what I do with my mind is I move. So if that's walking around the house or walking outside, I get in so grounded. And then I also just start asking for help. Like I imagine, I've got my chakras, I go down to my base, I go down to Mother Earth, no matter where I'm at, link in with the heart of Mother Earth, allow that to just flow through me and ask for help. Please help me. Please help me calm down. Please help me get some information. Please help me. And I may get a phone call. I may feel like painting. I may listen to music, but something will come and I will do whatever that is. And the other day, I turned on some music and I went dancing around the house. And just like that, I didn't even remember why I was upset. So really that movement thing for me, moving myself into that automatic movement or wanting to dance or like I've gotten pretty automatic in some of these positive coping skills because I sought it out so much because anger and agitation and frustration was a huge issue for me that I was having problems shifting, and movement was how I did that. So now I can catch myself. And I used to stop myself, like, what am I doing? Like, no, like, okay, let's find out where the body wants to go. Like acknowledging that the body is its own being and allowing it to show me how I can shift this and being a partner with that body.
Yeah, I love like movement's such a huge one for me too. And it's funny, same thing. Like I love that because sometimes you don't notice, like you do all this work, but right, I have that too sometimes where my body is just like, okay, we're gonna go outside now and ground. And it's like that was not my natural inclination even maybe a year or two ago. I would sit there and ruminate or I would get really pissed off. I also had to work through a lot of anger. So anytime you can move that energy, shake it off. Like I used to shake a lot. So go outside, like just stand with your feet on the earth or like yeah, just imagine like, be like T Swizz and shake it off. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. But also like touching trees or the earth, like with your bare skin, touching and using your intentionality. So one of the ayahuasca ceremonies that I was a guardian for, one of the participants, she got a download and I've used this and it's helped me so much, like, cause I can have a lot of worry and fear. And she got this download in ceremony to just put your hands on Mother Earth, right? A tree, ground, whatever, and just consciously give your worries and your fears to Mother Earth. And right, say thank you when you're done. Um, but it's huge, right? Because it kind of creates this different flow of the energy, whereas it can get like on this continuous loop when we're in here. But when you're consciously like, okay, I'm going to surrender this to you, right? I don't need to know. I don't need to be in the monkey mind. I don't need to have all of this happening right here. I can just continue to surrender it and allow that energy to be redirected in a different way. That's also been really helpful. And I've been using that a lot lately. So, yeah. So, eclipse season. So,
Yes.
there's an eclipse on September 17th. Let me see my notes because I don't remember this right now. So there is a lunar full moon eclipse on September 17th. The sun is in Virgo and the moon is in Pisces. Um, and then eclipses with the season, there's usually two eclipses. So 2 weeks later in this eclipse season, I don't know, I did air quotes, on October 2nd, we have the second eclipse. So it's going to be a solar new moon eclipse, which by then we have gone into Libra season. So it'll be the new moon in Libra. So you'll want to look and see where these eclipses are showing up in your chart. So for instance, just right. So if you look in your chart and you see where your Virgo energy is, and then we're Pisces, right? With the full moon, the sun and the moon are opposite. Um, and then with the eclipse on October 2nd, it's where Libra is in your chart. So just very basically, you could look at the energy of the houses. Couple questions we can answer over. It's like, it's
Hey,
hard
drop us a
sometimes, right?
comment. Drop us
Yeah.
a comment and we can
Yeah.
answer. We'll respond to comments that are seeking for further clarification.
Yeah. That's why readings are good because there
Yes.
is so much energy that's being activated, right? There's different aspects that you have between the planets. There's just so much that goes into it. But
Well, and the other thing too is that if I love what you're saying, look at the houses, see where something can be brought to light and where you can have shifts. And if all of that sounds way too overwhelming, then just put out the intention of shifting. So you can bring in forgiveness, you can bring in, what needs to be brought to light. And that's what I love about this is do a little ritual, whether that's writing something down or putting out an intention to understand better and what can I let go of? What can I let go of so that I can bring something new in? That's that
mm,
eclipse energy is like it shakes it up so we can bring
mm,
something new in. So if
mm,
you understand the astrology, go ahead and look at that because that's great. And if you don't, then just where do I want something to change in my life? What I will say is we are very intuitive beings. So you may know nothing and say, I don't know anything about this astrology, but I want this change. And then say you do get a, session with Robin or I or somebody else. And you're like, oh my God, I put the intention for this to change. And it was in that house. So that's where that totally happens. And it blows me away every single time. We have a deep understanding of these things. And I've also gone back and I missed the full moon. I should have done a little bit more around that. And I look and I'm like, oh, I was I was busy doing that, which is why I didn't have time to do the sit down and do the mental around it because I was doing it in life. So once again, give yourself some grace. But for those of us that have time and the desire, nerd it out. Like get up in there, get a reading, understand it better, and really either way, whichever way you do it, be super intentional about your behavior because as we set these in motion this week and in on the 17th and in on the 2nd, that helps propel us into huge shifts over the next 6 months when the next set of eclipses happen. And I will say that when I'm able to be intentional, whether that is understanding the houses or just being intentional about, saying, I want this to shift, the impact is magnified based on not doing anything. Like if I don't do anything, stuff still changes. But when I set an intention, it really shifts in a beautiful way. And when I set those intentions, can you bring in change, bring in the new in the easiest possible way for me to integrate into my life? And
yeah.
that's really where I see the big changes happening, new coming in, and it's all very smooth. Whereas otherwise, it may be the exact amount of change, but it is not smooth. It is like jarring. So just that's my 2 cents on it.
No, I love that. I Intentionality is it's such a huge but simple thing that we can use
Mm-hmm.
that we forget, right? So setting intentions with like, I'm going to go for this walk and I'm going to ask for clarity or I'm going to ask for healing as I go on this walk. Like you can do it. I'm having a conversation with this person. Like, and it's funny because the universe is like, yes, yes, you get to do this because it's something that continues to come up for me as well. It's like using that intentionality. So yeah, I think it's an easy tool that we often forget about. So remind yourself to, even if it's just a little intention that you set for yourself that nobody else even knows about, the universe knows you're sending that energy out there. You're asking for that help. So yeah. All right. I'm glad we chatted about this today.
Yeah, it feels good. I'm excited
Yeah.
now. I'm ready. I'm ready to work on my intentions and work on my forgiveness. That'll probably be it. Allow me to have forgiveness in new areas of my life and allow me to integrate it beautifully over the next 6 months. So
Mhm.
be it.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Robin and Jessica here. You guys know you can find us, all the details are in the bio. Thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Give us some nice comments, some thumbs up, all the things that the interwebs wants us to do. Thank you guys for joining us.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. And I don't need to see the road to believe, to believe.